Yeah, hydrogen is a fundamental element. It's a lightest and most energy density element in the earth, and that was discovered like almost 250 years ago, and has been implemented in energy sectors like 200 years ago. But then the industries right now, it consumes quite a lot of hydrogen. More than 100 million metric tons of hydrogen are annually consumed by industries. But all of them does not come from renewable sources that we talk about, like green hydrogen, splitting water by electricity and separating hydrogen and oxygen molecules. That is what we call green, because carbon dioxide is not is linked in any ways. But hydrogen in the industries comes from different sources, and most cheap and most easy form of hydrogen comes from the fossil fuels, like breaking the fossil fuels into hydrogen and carbon elements. For example, hydrogen can be produced from coal, hydrogen can be produced from natural gases, but then those hydrogen are cheap, but those hydrogen are also accompanied by the production of carbon dioxide from the fossil fuels. So then the question arises, there is the hydrogen produced from fossil fuels which also produce carbon dioxide. If hydrogen is taken up by industries and carbon dioxide is released in the air, that's a dirty hydrogen, because you are producing and emitting carbon dioxide in the air. So that is called the black hydrogen if it's from the coal, and gray hydrogen it's from the natural gas. But if carbon dioxide are captured and utilized or stored, then you are not emitting carbon dioxide in the air, but still you are producing hydrogen from fossils. So that is called blue hydrogen, because you are producing hydrogen from fossils but not emitting carbon dioxide in the air. So that's a blue. But if you produce hydrogen without being any contact with carbon, like I said, splitting water by electricity, so there is no contact with carbon dioxide or carbon element at all, then it's green. So three major colors are black or gray, blue and green. We are going in the right direction towards that. The business model will always be promoted by the profit incentives the investor will get, and the market that will accept that technology is the driving factor. So now I think the market is getting mature. People are getting aware of like the potential Nepal has with green hydrogen and the business sectors that can be benefited with this technology. But now the question comes, how we bring the investments, how we bring the technology to complement the industrial adoption of hydrogen. And that will not happen in business as usual scenarios. So business as usual scenarios is always cheaper or cheapest with fossil fuels. Business in climate change scenarios. So how do we drive the same business in the climate change scenarios? And there are so many mechanisms that has been already developed globally. Like we have access to climate funds, green climate funds, loss and damage funds, green bonds. So there are so many mechanisms which helps business in a normal scenario with a fossil fuel scenario to transit to climate scenarios, like where we pump the renewables and green hydrogen. But then how do we coordinate to have access to those kind of fundings which will fulfill the viability gap? Fossil fuel are cheap, and if we add viability gap, then green fuels will be economically cheaper or economically feasible. Then to bring that viability gap fund is a challenge, where the private sector alone cannot do that. So we need to have this public-private partnership where privates will bring investments, they will bring technology, they will induce market, whereas public will bring policies, public will bring access to the green funds, green bonds, climate funds, and blend it to the private investments and make business viable. So that has to be initiated, and both directions, public part, government part and private part, have to discuss, work together and come together to develop this business model. And I hope things are happening a lot. For me as a university people, we don't have a financial like a business development challenge, like a risk of getting bankrupt and all the things, because we are away, we are inside the room where we create knowledge, where we create human resources, where we try to create technology for the business development. But the challenge on our side is to convince people or government to put money on this research. We need some resources to drive this research, to drive the development of knowledge, human resources, technology, and then to sustain our activities. So that's the most challenge at the moment. And second is to convince and bring this public-private two faces together. Because at the end, what we aim is to have the commercial activities in the country. So when we go to private sector, they are not interested because they don't find a business enabling environment in conventional business as well. So how would they put money on something new, hydrogen and others, which government still doesn't have the regulations and procedures? So they are not willing to do that. And they don't have a proper knowledge to get access of these climate funds, climate green bonds and green funds. And government, they are busy in their own activities, how to secure their positions and keep government rolling on. Of course, that's a pity of our country, but that's what it is. That's fact. So it's very challenging to convince on both sides, and sometimes we are blamed by both government and private sectors on pitching something which is maybe not realizable in context of Nepal, and that's a huge challenge to convince ourselves to keep motivation intact, to not get frustrated or discouraged and be silent. So we are not silent. We keep on advocating, we keep on working, and we will keep on trying to convince both government and private sector to come together and get going this new business, because it has lots of economic developments, possibilities for our country, and lots of employment and new jobs for our youths, and hold them back in our country. And I hope we will keep on working despite of these challenges. Global scale, actually, hydrogen is blamed to receive more attention than it should by normal business people. Why hydrogen is getting so much of attention from politics? Wherever you go in COP or on bigger forums, in climate actions plans, in G20 meetings, in G7 meetings, hydrogen will get a very special attention to that, lots of commitments on funding. And when it goes to the available of resources, I think at least when I see universities' fundings, I have a feeling that the highest amount of research grants a developed university is getting in a developed country is going towards hydrogen at the moment. So many PhD and postdocs vacancies are being announced. Even my students are recruited as a very good fellows in PhD and master's studies in reputed universities globally, because so much of fundings are getting into universities for research and innovations, because government believes out of because of the outcomes of that research and innovations, the technology will mature and go into the society and replace fossil fuels. I think it's a better utilization, I should say. Exploitation, I never liked the word exploitation. It has some kind of a negative connotation. But of course, I think fossil fuel were exploited because it were cheap, it were readily available, and it is so much of flexible. You can use it for any purpose. So they were exploited against the nature. So now we need to keep on moving forward with the prosperity humanity have achieved, with the lifestyle, living standards humanity has set. So if we start not to use energy at all, our prosperity and everything will go down, which we don't want. So in order to keep rolling our industries, in order to keep increasing our prosperity and developments, we need energy. No question, no doubt about that. But that should not come from fossils. That should come from renewables. So then the question is, do we have sufficient renewables that can replace fossil fuels? Yes, we have sufficient renewables to be used without hampering nature, without destroying the climate. But the question is how to utilize readily available renewables to replace fossils. And there comes the technologies like batteries, hydrogen, and other things. So it's not exploitation, it's a proper, well thought utilization of renewables through batteries and hydrogen technologies to conserve the nature and keep the prosperity and development the humanity have achieved through these industrial revolutions, keep going forward. In a simple words, hydrogen and other technology are tools. If you know how to use tools, you know what to do with it. If you just play around with it without knowing what to do without it, you can kill yourself. Like hydrogen, I say it's like a knife. If you know how to use it properly, you can chop the cucumbers. If you don't know how to use it properly, you might cut down your fingers. So all the technology comes with potential risk. But then a part of the technological development is a systematic identification of those risks and proper mitigation methods to avoid it scientifically. So hydrogen has been used in industries for last 150 years. It's not new, but those hydrogens were not green actually. So here the question is not changing the use of hydrogen, just changing the way the hydrogen is produced. So those hydrogen that is being used in industries have a very well developed, well practiced, well adopted safety regulation and risk mitigation strategy and plans, and that applies to green as well. So it's there. Yes, risk is there. Hydrogen could be the most hazardous hydrogen bomb if you want to use it in that way. But if you want to use it in a proper way, it's very good. So it's just like using gun. You want to kill some animals or you want to kill yourself. It's your choice. We were honored. We were so happy to have Right Honorable Prime Minister of Nepal coming to Kathmandu University, coming to Green Hydrogen Lab to inaugurate Nepal's first green hydrogen refilling station, where we can use a normal tap water to produce hydrogen, to process and purify hydrogen, to store hydrogen, and to dispense hydrogen in a hydrogen transport like car or buses. And that station is proudly designed by the research members of our own Kathmandu University that was assembled in Korea. So it is the proudest moment for green hydrogen development so far in our country to have a Prime Minister inaugurate the refilling station and to have a test drive in this hydrogen car. And he has been following it up with different ministries to make this hydrogen business feasible in Nepal. And he has collected so many evidences. What can be done? What kind of institutional setup is required? A regulatory framework is required. What kind of work procedure has to be made in order to promote green hydrogen, not only in transport, but other industrial applications as well. And we believe if Prime Minister is willing to promote something in Nepal, it should happen. It should not only happen because it's Prime Minister's interest, it's Nepal's need and Nepal's one of the opportunity that we should not miss to transform our economy towards and make our country prosperous by proper utilization of renewable energy and resources we have. So that's the biggest achievement we have, and we hope this will not be diluted and it will produce impact because Prime Minister has an interest, and if Prime Minister has interest, it should work.